There we go. So welcome to Minnesota SCORE's presentation on a talent management framework for the new world of work. Our presenter, Jordan Anderson, is well versed in this, and we look forward to hearing what he has to say. So please, Jordan, take it away.
Thanks so much, Diane. I appreciate it and welcome everybody. My name is Jordan Anderson. I currently live in Miami. I'm originally from New York. I relocated down to Miami about 5 years ago, and that's where I connected with SCORE, where I had visited way back in the days when I was a recent college grad and then when I started a business. So I was familiar with SCORE. And when I came to Miami, it was a good way of getting into the community because I arrived in the middle of COVID and everything was pretty much internal. So welcome today. And we have a small group, which is fine. And my presentations, I like to have as an interactive conversation type, similar to the way I would make a presentation if I was calling on a client or a prospective client. And I'm going to talk a little bit about SCORE, but my background is marketing, communications, and advertising. I've had an ad agency for many years, and I've reinvented myself. And my specialty has really been the world of work, which is talent management. So I've worked a lot with human resources, talent acquisition, different titles over the years, in helping them brand their companies as employers of choice. I've shifted my focus to doing more work on personal branding, working with, and I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. But again, feel free to put any questions, any comments in the chat. Diana and I will monitor it. I'll pause from time to time to take any questions. And again, feel free, don't be shy, because I'd like to have as much participation as possible. So with that being said, let me get a little bit into SCORE. As I mentioned a few moments ago, uh, I've been with SCORE in Miami-Dade. I've gone through all the certification, but my main focus has been director of educational events, such as webinars and other types of events. The beauty of SCORE is it's been around since 1964. We have around 300 plus chapters. We're sponsored by the SBA, which is the Small Business Administration, a government institution. And the incredible part of it is it's a great way to connect with the local community. And SCORE is, again, pretty much in every city across the country. So the two main services that people take advantage of are the mentoring or coaching, where you could apply and get a customized mentor who it used to be back in the old days that mentors were retired business people, some corporate, some business owners. Now it's pretty much across the board. You get millennials, Gen X, Y, Z, and of course, baby boomers, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one area. The other area, of course, is the events and programs such as today. And pretty much all 95% of our services at SCORE are free. The mentors are incredible. I mean, again, there are different specialties from marketing, legal, finance, fundraising, nonprofit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, SCORE has different chapter website. I'm being in the Miami-Dade, it's miamidade.score.org. If you go to score.org, you can go into your specific chapter where you can see the events, request a mentor, and really kind of go through a library of very, very valuable information. So I'm going to get going here. And again, as I mentioned, SCORE is funded in part through an agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. And here is just that information about how our relationship is with the SBA. Okay, let me go to the next slide. All right, so very briefly about myself. Uh, a mentor. I don't do as much mentoring as much as I used to. Doing much more in getting events going and looking for community partners. Minnesota and Miami-Dade SCORE, where I'm from, of course, we often do co-ops or co-programs, such as what we're doing here. my background has really been more corporate branding and most recently personal branding. And when people ask what I do, I'm really kind of like a career life design architect, which really is a way of saying that I help people with their branding, their personal branding. And you'll receive copies of these slides and you'll have my contact information if you have any questions. Oops, I guess we have the wrong way. Pardon me. All right, let's go back. Okay, so I'm going to force people not to be shy here because this is the way I would start any sort of presentation. Because when I doing let's say, a new business call, and the number one question I ask are, what are the 1 to 2 most important things that you want to talk about today? Um, so I'm asking our attendees, what are the 1 to 2 most important things you want to walk away with today for your business around the subject of how do you attract, find, retain talent to help drive business growth? So again, a lot of the slides that I have here are are kind of filtered or focused on a perspective of either you being the business owner or being a person who maybe doesn't have a business but has the authority to hire people, retain them, and that sort of thing. So if you can put in the chat, and I'm going to, get into some of the details. The other questions, we kind of mentioned the type of business that you're in or industry, but let's just focus on the red one. What would you like to walk away with today? What's some of the pain points that you've been experiencing around this subject? Let's see if we have anything going in the chat.
Not yet. Don't be shy, guys.
Yeah,
This will be a better presentation if you
yeah.
participate.
Yeah, because again, it's like anything else, whether you're interviewing a candidate or you're going out on a business call, you need to kind of focus in on what's most important to your candidate. In this case, it could be a client, or it could be someone you're recruiting. Um, Choosing who to recruit. Thanks, Susanna. Bill saying help who to recruit and how. Alan. Okay. All right. Feel free to kind of keep that question in the back of your mind. Managers for Alan in Tennessee. What type of managers? Any specific type, Alan?
Event manager, it looks like.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let's move on. But again, feel free to kind of join in. All right, this is the model that I use that I've developed over the years. And again, you're going to receive copies of this, and I'll probably drop this in the chat towards the end. Um, I call it the 10 power strategies to attract, retain, and develop. See, I added the word develop into this slide because the key things that you can do for your business is how do you not only find people and retain them, but how do you develop them to become the best that they can be for them and for you and your business. Because again, if I was talking to human resource or talent acquisition, I would be probably focusing this in a slightly different direction. But as a business owner or a business person or an executive, essentially, you are looking at a few things. How do you find, keep the best people? But at the same time, how do you develop them? So the points here I'm just going to touch on briefly. And again, feel free as I'm going through these points. And again, you'll receive copies of this as well. And just as a quick thing, this we're going to scratch the surface in the time we have to. But as you go through the materials, feel free to email me or text me. I have my contact information with SCORE on any of the topics that we touch. So very briefly, I want to just go through these 10 points. Now, this is very, very important. In today's, and I again call it the new world of work, I say everyone is a business. So what does that mean? Never before, I mean, in a lot of ways, post-COVID, has people been able to create their own work. So you can get hybrid workers, consultants, freelancers, part-time. Um, So in some ways, there's always layoffs and there's always stress. But the key, and a little bit about that more, uh, as much as AI and technology has come into the world of work, the human touch and connection is paramount. Number two, employees as clients or customers. This is critically important as well. When I had an ad agency in New York, I had about 15 to 18 employees max, a lot of them full-time, some part-time, some interns. I think, again, to be successful, and again, I'm trying to look at this from a bottom line business standpoint, treating your employees as clients or customers, exactly what it sounds like, as opposed to just workers per se, is very important because especially as we go into some new areas with technology and other things, employees will have a lot of choices as to how and who they work for. Number three, co-create jobs, careers, hybrid work. Again, the amount of flexibility and some of the questions, how do I find them? Um, these are some of the beginning answers. So when you're looking to hire someone or find someone, don't be so attached to just a job description that you might put in Indeed.com or one of the job sites. Nowadays, you can co-create and customize jobs, careers around what you're looking for and also around what the individual is looking for. Number four, this is, excuse me, kind of the basis of how I've looked at things. Holistic, which is a word that's being used a lot more these days, but I've been using it probably a lot longer, is the holistic talent managing synergies and strategies. Because essentially, as a business owner or executive, any sort of relationship is kind of like 1 + 1 = 10. So we're going to talk about what that means in terms of talent management. Number five, and this is a good analogy, as the business owner or chief executive, you need to look at yourself as kind of like a general manager of a sports team. So essentially, you have a certain skill or expertise, whether it's technology, marketing, creative services, counseling. However, whatever your team is, and even if you're a solopreneur, you do have a team, and I'm going to talk about that from a standpoint of who is a member of your team. But to give you a quick analogy, the GM of a football team, it could be any sport, for example, looks at the different positions, looks at the different aspects, and how do they synergize together. So what they're looking for in a quarterback is different for what they're looking for in an offensive blocking person. So similarly, you're going to figure out as a business owner, what do you do best? What do your people do best? And how do they fit into the main formula? The purpose factor, alignment, and assessments. I'm going to get into that a little later. Number seven, AI, utilizing AI properly. Again, this is kind of in its infant stage in the world of work. I use it personally for brainstorming, editing, and I'm not ashamed if I send an email or even a presentation to say, by the way, I received help from ChatGPT on this. So it's not replacing me, but it's almost another employee or two. So it's, if anything, as a business owner and entrepreneur, this can be able to free you up so you can be doing more to build and grow your business, which is again part of the subject matter of today's program. Um, Now, this is the part that I was mentioning before. If you're a solopreneur, you don't have to have a big company. In fact, who is part of your community? So, for example, if you're looking to recruit, often I may speak to a client or a vendor who happens to know me and my culture and say, by the way, do you know anybody who happens to be a good fit for my organization? Because we're going to get into that in a minute, because the C part of the CAB model is culture. The A is alignment and B is blueprint. We're going to go over each of those in a couple of minutes. But again, you're not alone. I mean, a lot of solopreneurs, a lot of small businesses, but you do have people as part of your team. And they can be sometimes your greatest recruiters. They could also be individuals help you retain your staff, and we're going to get into how you go about doing that. Where and how do I attract, retain, and develop my best talent, which was a question that was raised. Again, that's something which once we go over the foundation of the CAB model, I'll give you some examples. And the last part, which is really mastermind groups have been around for a long time, but the key is really having employee as partners and owners in your company. I don't mean literally from an equity standpoint, although it could be an employee, partnered company or own company. But the key is really to have a real healthy exchange with your people. Okay, this is was developed in I think 2023. I'm not going to go through all of these right now because a lot of these you may know, but only 36% of employees are engaged in the workplace. A highly engaged, number two, a highly engaged workforce increases profitability by 21%. And then you go down and down and down. I mean, what does this all come down to? Is kind of what I mentioned before about that the age of personalization. It's very easy to be disengaged, especially you can be on Zoom as we are, and it's just the natural matter of things. I mean, when pre-COVID, everyone was in the office, then people were disengaged, but especially now, it's very, very hard. So that's one hard fact. The question is really the new world of work is exactly that. People are looking more than just salary. They're looking for purpose. They're looking for meaning. They're looking for some people like a lifestyle type business or career or job. So, the interesting thing is, and in some ways, as I mentioned, everyone is a business and everyone is almost as in the service business. People are almost their own businesses within businesses. And if you recognize that, it will help you as you develop your various strategies. This slide, and you can concentrate really on the last one, the orange. This is the fifth revolution, and it was the age of personalization, which I was mentioning before. As you look at the ones previously, the Industrial Revolution, et cetera, et cetera. But this is where we are now. People are looking for not only lower prices or more value, or it's not just the value, rather the pricing, but it's all around the service, the experience, the experiential aspect. So even if you own a restaurant or a brick and mortar type business, people will utilize you, but they'll come back to you if you understand that the deep multi-level collaboration between people, machine, and awareness. So that's critical, especially as you're going to recruit and hire people. And I'm going to get into this right now. I just wanted to show this diagram because the next few slides are going to be this using this process. Let me just go to the chat room. Questions at this point? Megan and Premier saying they can't take it. I see there was a question from Caroline. I'm an owner. Okay, so that's a trustworthy person. Okay, so I think we'll kind of get to that in a different sort of way. But this is a Venn diagram where these three things kind of define the new world of work or the age of personalization. Whether you're looking for an employee, whether you own a business, and again, this is not a blanket for all, but nowadays, from a standpoint of what the workforce is about, people are looking to apply their passions, their purpose, and profit. And when I say profit, it could include revenue, salary, benefits, but it really profit is equated to success, how they view success. And when you have those three intersecting or overlapping, you see the middle. So it's that really sums up a lot of what people are looking for in the world of work across the board, business owners, career changers, recent college grads, etc. All right, so this was just um, kind of the wording: passion, purpose, profit, success. Talent management is not just the logistics, or it's more than logistic. It's a legacy. So you're kind of building something that is in the bigger picture, something that reflects who you are and your authentic voice. the passion, which is fueling energy engagement. We talk about disengagement. How do you combine people's passions, skills, and strengths where they can be energetic and engaged? Because essentially, as a business owner, if you're able to do that, that will contribute to your bottom line. I mean, having activated, engaged employees or staff or partners, however you want to look at it, will translate very well. Purpose, connecting to meaningful work, as I mentioned. Profit, sustaining business goals through human empowerment. And again, that includes not only money, but other aspects that translate to money. So this is just something which I did years ago. And this talks a lot about holistic. And, sometimes when we talk about our health, we look at it's not just the body, but it's the mind, the body, the spirit, emotions, however you want to call it. So this is kind of an analogy that I had done years ago for a company that was, I think, a healthcare organization. So what I likened it to is cells equals individuals, the organs are equal to departments, and bodies equal to organizations. And this is something that was done. Again, I'm just showing this more as a concept that will lead into the core of what we're talking about today. Um, this was recruitment, retention, and development, and the sweet spot is in the middle, where we get the synergy, where the 1 + 1 = 10. Mind, body, spirit. Again, you can do this for pretty much any area that you're looking to develop. Okay, so let's get into each one of the CABs. The C stands for culture, the A is the assessment, and the B is the blueprint. So let's get into each one. Briefly, the culture is really the core essence or mission. It's your what and why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you unique? What is your business about? Where do you want it to go? And that really is formed by the business owner or business partners, people who really kind of set the tone of what their style is, the type of people that would fit in. And again, it doesn't mean that they have to be exactly like you, but there needs to be a culture match in the sense that they need to kind of buy into your vision. So the C is a very important piece. The assessment is the who. And in this case, when we're talking about recruitment and retention, we're talking about your people. Now, I say your people because it doesn't necessarily have to mean your employees or your staff. It could be people who you partner with, people who you collaborate with. It could be your employees. So essentially, are they aligned with the culture? And who are they? What are they about? What's their strengths and skills, et cetera, et cetera. And then when you take those together, you come up with the blueprint, which is the action plan, or I like to call it the activation plan, where you combine the culture or the core essence of the mission of the owner, founder, partners, the assessment. All right, I'm looking for managers. I am looking for marketing staff. I'm looking for writers, et cetera, et cetera. Um, who are they? What's their goals? What's their legacy? Where do they want to go in their career? Is it the right fit? And then the blueprint is the final piece where you say, okay, now that I've put together a good team, how do we activate going forward together as a business? So again, this is what I just had in writing, um, shown on a Venn diagram, the culture, the core essence, the vision of the CEO or the chief executive. Um, how do the people align and how do you assess these types of people, your staff? Do they fit into your core mission, your core way of expressing? Again, and the synergy success is the middle portion in yellow. And the blueprint is how do we do this? How do I find the staff? How do I develop my staff? How do I keep my staff and my people happy? And again, your staff or your people may even be your vendors, or it may even be your clients, or it may be people in your community who partner with you on different aspects. So that's the beauty of today's new world of work. It's almost like you need to put on a new lens because the whole paradigm is being shifted. All right, so the culture, which is really the key part from the standpoint of the business owner, is really where you begin. And this is kind of something that more and more people are focusing on with coaches, with consultants. But this is like a critical first part, especially as we're talking about this world of work and finding people who can be trusted partners, um, employees, staff, and people who can make contributions to their business and can also advance their career and be happy. So, what do we do? What will our culture be like? I kind of mentioned this a few moments ago. What is our mission? So, again, you're not looking for um, puppets, you're not looking for exact Xerox copies of yourself. Again, it's like the analogy I mentioned of the general manager of a sports team. The individual may have be completely different from you. So, for example, I'm more of a new business development vision, big picture person. I need a left brain operation person to balance out who I am. However, the type of person that I'm looking for, although different from me from a skill set, even from a temperament point or whatever it is, complements me in the sense that we both have a similar sort of vision as to where we want to be in life and work. So that's why a lot of this we say is work life because everything intersects. So it's not just about jobs and it's not just about business. The assessment alignment, and that was, I had this other slide, and you guys can email me, or there's a number of excellent assessment programs out there that are really inexpensive. One is the purpose factor. There's the disc profile. There's a lot out there. I think what happens, and I've seen this happen, even with myself when I was graduating college, I changed my major 3 times. And finally, I went into the career office just to figure out, give me some direction. And I took the Myers-Briggs and a few others. How do you assess who are the right people for your talent, your team, and your partners? As I mentioned, there's a purpose assessment. There's a number of surveys out there as well. So you're really looking at the talent audits. What's their strengths, their values, their vision? What type of alignment do they have with the company culture and the role fit? Now, again, the key is very often people have dormant skills and dormant gifts. The question is, how do you bring them out? So, that's something which I'm going to talk about. It's called job sculpting or career sculpting, which is really, really, really important. Most people kind of stumble upon it if they're lucky. Too many people are kind of like, especially we're getting to going to school or graduating, kind of like it's almost like a coin flip. They're not really sure what skills they have, what they want to do. Does this align with their passion and goals? And finally, of course, is the blueprint or the activation plan. How do you create, architect, implement the steps before, from the culture, the alignment, and the blueprint? So, as we're going through this and as you receive the materials, um, it's good to just jot down notes because if you go through the step by step, and especially from a cultural fit, you're looking for win-win outcomes. When you're looking to hire people, you're looking to essentially bring another partner into your business. Although, again, we're not talking about necessarily an equity partner, which they may be at some point. It's kind of like retention. How do you retain them? Because, again, the um, results will be enormous if you get someone who's engaged and energized. And these are just some questions to ask, and I say ask employees, but these could be prospective employees, and people you're interviewing, people you're recruiting. What makes you feel most alive at work? What's a skill you haven't used yet? Where do you feel blocked, misaligned, or underutilized? So, again, I think job titles, that whole world of job titles is really, in some ways, becoming too old-fashioned because there are people who have a number of skills and talents. So, for example, I had a temporary worker who was with my company when I started at my house, whose background was teaching, and she had been doing some part-time work at a florist, but she had this amazing personality, and I saw that, and I said, Barb, you like to perhaps get involved in more communications. So, for example, we need people to follow up on bills being sent out and et cetera, et cetera. Long story short, she really rose to the occasion because she had this incredible personality, and she engaged people on the phone. And she was like super surprised that she had this dormant talent and skill that had been really asleep for so many years. And she went on and she eventually became like a CEO's assistant in this major company up in northern New York. Um, so this is something called job sculpting, and I have a link to this in the material that you can look into in more depth. This is critical because essentially what it's doing, you're kind of creating jobs or new roles. That's why even using the word job is kind of like becoming extinct around people's strengths, their skills, their goals. So similarly, as a business person and as a business owner, you have certain visions, goals, where you'd like your business to be. What are some of the returns that you would like to have on your investment in time? Similarly, looking at people that way is critical because again, my view is when I've trained people and I've trained a number of employees a number of whom have gone out on their own and started their own business. I think, as funny or weird as this may sound, I think mentoring and training someone as if like a child, you have to let them fly. So if a person becomes so good that they say, Jordan, I think it's time that I need to move out and do my own thing, or I want to go in this direction, or completely, this is not the right career for me. But I think mentoring, training, guiding people, it's a master compliment if they're able to go beyond. And most of the time, I have not had problems with the separation. So that's really critical. That's just my philosophy. Developing internal mobility and re-engagement, reducing turnover by enabling internal entrepreneurship. This is really interesting. Google has a policy where I don't know the exact percentage, but I think they give each employer like 20% of their time to pursue their other interests. So, for example, I think there was two women employees who started this organization called I forget the exact Remarkable Me, I believe, or I Am Remarkable Me. And so it's again part of their time, and this has become like an international organization. I don't know the details if it's a profitable or it's part of Google or it's part of these individuals, but that's kind of a bit of an extreme. But encourage people to kind of go for it. It might be a division within your company. It might be something that you partner with. And it's not unusual. Some people leave and they reacquaint themselves again with their former employers. And this is just a sample of job sculpting. You can't see this because it's small type, but essentially, years ago, we did some interviews with nurses because they were looking to recruit nurses. We interviewed about 10 or so nurses in different units, and we got into questions about their work, their life, their goals. And they actually this was back in the day when there was more print ads. This was an open house, and at the very bottom, it says referral bonus. So if the employees or people referred other employees, they would give a bonus. Again, this is a good example of what I mean by job sculpting. So it almost looks like this person is a company, which in some ways they are. So you'll get copies of this and you can read it. Same thing here. We just added a little bit of color. Sometimes people like say, well, in addition to being a nurse, I like to meditate or I like to help family out with their struggles, et cetera, et cetera. This was a student who came out of a school and was looking for his first job out of Dartmouth. So similarly, so this is like kind of a fun thing to do. One of the things from a retention standpoint is sometimes they call it a stay interview. You sit down with individuals once a year, once every 6 months, and really talk about their goals and how are they using or utilizing their skills. Do they feel they want to do more? Do they want to transfer their skills? Because if they can do it there at your company, great. Sometimes they're shy and they won't speak up. Or, I guess you just don't want people to quiet quit, essentially be ignored and just say, I'm just not getting my needs met. Um, what else could we do? So essentially, and I'm going to get into the other part in a moment about the where to find people, some of the ideas. The flow state, successful recruiting, retention, development. Flow is when we hear the word flow, it's kind of like you're in synchronicity. Everything seems to kind of fall into place. So, at times athletes have got into this, people have gotten into this when they run. Um, so when employees are aligned, they experience intrinsic motivation. They stop, as I mentioned, quiet quitting and start co-creating. They feel seen, supported, and in motion. So again, everything that I'm emphasizing today is around getting them. I mean, I'm using this example of flow state, but it's really getting them aligned with what's best for them, what's best for the company, because they shouldn't be mutually exclusive. Because if they are, then it's not the right fit for you and it's not the right fit for the person. And again, these are three areas or at least two areas that I touched upon. Job sculpting, job crafting are very similar, but it's the art of matching people to jobs that allow their deeply embedded life interests and work interests to be expressed. Job crafting is similar, and there's a few good articles on it from Harvard Business Review. And an IDP is an individual development plan, and that essentially is sitting down with individuals and really kind of looking at them as almost companies. Are they satisfied with the way work is going? Do they want to do more in their work life? Um, so this is really, really important. And, I think again, the mastermind groups very often for entrepreneurs and business people are kind of sessions where people get together, could be once a month, twice a month, to brainstorm different ideas for businesses. Um, we're finding that internal mastermind groups are great for employees in terms of retention, development, ideas, because what you don't want is people doing quiet quitting, like this really is an innovative approach, but I'm afraid we can't consider it. It's never been done before. Do we really want to see more of this or this? Before we start the round of wide open brainstorming, I just like to remind you that all ideas that are not mine must be rejected. So this is just a Venn diagram where you can kind of map out some of your ideas. But to get back to an earlier question, and feel free to put questions in the chat now, but a question that was raised earlier, where do you find people nowadays? And how do you find people nowadays? And again, I'm just going to bullet off a couple of thoughts that um, that I have found to be very, very successful in this new world of work. I think again, utilizing your or forming a professional board of advisors, which could include clients, vendors, uh, people that you know in the community, um, schools. I mean, a lot of this stuff you kind of know. But I think the most important thing is if it's not the owner or founder or executives, kind of putting your culture out there. Whether it's a school visit, and it doesn't have to be necessarily college, it could be a technical school or individuals, because there's a lot of kids now who are just saying, the price of tuition is just incredibly high. I'm going to do a 2-year school and do a lot of online learning to learn my skill, whether it's coding, whatever it is. Most importantly, it's a back and forth effort. So whether it's the owner again, or you may even have someone on staff or part of your group who's a great person on social media who can reflect your culture or can do some webinars or can do some career days at school. Um, that's again getting back to the culture aligned blueprint um, formula or framework. As I mentioned before, getting out there, being discovered, posting on LinkedIn. Again, people are looking for who you are and what's your culture, and is there a right fit? because essentially you're looking to make a match. You're not looking just to hire people, unless you're in a business where, it's very straightforward and you're just looking for reliability, and that's it. For the most part, people are looking for a longer term relationship. So, and the other thing too is to be choosy and a standpoint of, again, a lot of the technology these days sources resume out, and it's very difficult for people to get in the door. So, are the exact skills that you're putting down written in stone, or could they be transferred or learned? I think that's a very, very key piece of the puzzle. Or is this something that people who are currently in your company or associated with your company could learn, or are they one of these DIY, do-it-yourself type people who you say, you seem to have great technical skills or organizational skills. I'm going to pay for this course or this conference. Are they the sort of people that you want to invest in? So again, where does this all come down to? It's really personalizing it, the way you would be going out for business and choosing your clients, because you're really looking for people who kind of get who you are as well. So it's not that different. That's why I say in treating working with employees and people as if they're your clients and customers is quite accurate. So I'm going to,
We have a question from Lainey. Having a nonprofit performing arts program, should I look for faithful volunteers before I hire a potential employee? What do you think?
yeah, I mean, that's always a definite yes. I think, again, it's almost like, I don't know if I would use the word tryouts, but it's a great opportunity for you to see how the individual does, and for the individual to find out a little bit about who you are and your culture. So absolutely. And I think what I would do, even to go further, and let's say in the interview stage, you can even say that we've had people who've gone through this sort of program or, you know, example where, you can't say that it's 100% is going to turn into full-time work, but it might, or part-time work. I think being upfront about that is a great idea.
Caroline, who has a pet service business, is concerned. She is planning on getting pregnant and was hoping to be able to perhaps have one of her employees take over her responsibilities. But she's concerned that if they left her, that they would copy her systems and processes. Is that a valid concern?
Yes, I mean it's a question that's um, it's a very common question, and I don't know if it's a super common occurrence. I think that's always a concern, and it's a legitimate concern. From a legal standpoint, we have some attorneys who are part of SCORE. That's the sort of thing that I would check with an attorney, because sometimes there's certain basic documentation that employees can sign to protect you, which is never a bad idea. I mean, I think it's especially when you do it up front, as early as possible. The reality is, if someone's going to do it, you just kind of want to make it harder for them to even think about doing it. In terms of stopping it, I don't, aside from having that in place, that I don't know if it's a confidentiality agreement, or I don't think it's a non-compete in the sense, meaning that they can work somewhere else in a similar industry, but it's your assets, it's your company assets, and I think that's what I would do. I mean, it's never too late. So to answer the question, uh, I think I would approach the individual and say, thank them for volunteering. And this is just a standard practice to protect the company, and go with that. So I think, again, it's never too late. And it's probably a good idea. I mean, if this is a sort of person who has signs of that in their personality, then that's a different issue. You have to work with that. But if that's just a concern, as a general concern, that's what I would do. I would have an attorney draft something up for you and for all your employees for that matter.
Can you suggest a website or a company to create a complete background check versus an average pre-employment background check, but that doesn't cost hundreds of dollars?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I that's more of a HR question. I don't know, Diane, if you have people in your chapter who are in that world. I mean, I can check Miami-Dade because there's a lot of companies that do that.
Okay, yeah, we do have some HR people I could ask.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know the cost range, how that works. If, you know, and it's probably better if you can find a mentor somewhere. If you don't have anybody, let me know and I can check Miami-Dade. But I would check that route first, and you know, before they just do something online.
This is actually somebody who is my client of my score clients.
Okay, there you
I
go.
will check and get back to her. How often is a respectable time to have an employee review slash pay raise slash give the employee more responsibilities? Is there a general suggestion on the percentage of pay of your employee to your overall net income? I want my employees to feel acknowledged and
Right.
paid well for job satisfaction.
Yeah, that's also, I would put in the same ballpark of an HR question. I mean, as a business owner who's had employees, I think, and I want to say, my wife is also a principal, a head of a school, and she has an HR person. I think it's done at least once a year, maybe twice. I don't know. I think it's a pretty straightforward question that you can get an answer to. In terms of what's the percentage or increases, and I'm not 100% sure about that either. I mean, the only thing I can say from my perspective as a business owner and entrepreneur is, I would, when I talk to the candidate and say, what are your goals? Uh, what are the most meaningful benefits and other perks? Tell me a little bit about that. So, one is kind of like a qualitative question, the other is more of a quantitative question. So, the quantitative question, I would check with that same HR person for the background check. And then the qualitative person is more of that sculpting, the job sculpting, because a person may, you know, for example, I mean, years ago when I used to receive a lot of points through charging on American Express, one of the perks that I gave out to my employees was free flights based on the points. So again, I think it's a combination.
Caroline, why don't you contact me and we'll set something up, please? Okay, that's all the questions that are in the chat. If you still have some questions, guys, out there, leave them in the chat and Jordan can talk about them.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think again, the key is if you have any other questions that come up, feel free to contact, of course, Diane or myself. If we don't have the answers, we have mentors and people that presenters. Like I have a good lawyer, for example, who also does presentations, who can answer that question about the employee not going after clients or taking business, et cetera, et cetera. And that's pretty basic. It shouldn't be very expensive because it's usually a simple agreement that they sign. And it's also shouldn't be painful to people. It's not like you're stopping them from existing or working.
Actually, it's been my experience that people think that they'd like to be in business, but the reality is that they'll find that it's a lot of work setting it up and implementing it and managing people, and they'll soon find that maybe it isn't the fun job that you make it look like.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I see something from Alan Wilkinson in the Q&A. Yeah, Alan, if you have any questions or for me, just feel free to reach out on the email, jordan.anderson@scorevolunteer.org. I'm happy to answer any questions. That's the number that I have there is mostly for texting. If you have any quick questions or anything that come up, feel free to send that over to me. And of course, you have your local SCORE chapter in Minnesota. and they can help you as well. So, any other questions
I
or?
don't see any more. I think everybody was happy with your presentation and all their questions were answered.
Well, fantastic. Well, again, feel free to stay in touch. And Diane and Tom, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing your expertise and your time, and we and our participants really value that. So thank you very much, Jordan.
Okay, you're very welcome. Have a nice rest of the day.
Bye all.
Bye.